buying a car a good investment? Let's talk about the most expensive thing most people own that is actively working against them every single day. Not their house, not their student loans, their car. The thing sitting in your driveway or your parking spot right now, the one you might still be making payments on, is one of the single most destructive forces to personal wealth that exists in modern life. And the wild part? We don't even think of it that way. We think of it as just a thing you have, a thing you need. And yeah, most people do need a car. But there is a massive difference between understanding what a car actually costs you and just blindly doing what everyone around you does. Because what everyone around you does is making a lot of people a lot poorer than they need to be. So today, we are going to break down the full financial reality of car ownership, the depreciation, the financing, the insurance, the maintenance, all of it. And then we're going to talk about how to make the smartest possible decision given your situation, whatever that situation is. Welcome to Better Investments. Let's start with the thing that makes cars categorically different from almost every other major purchase you'll ever make. Cars go down in value, almost without exception, almost without fail. The moment you drive a new car off the lot, and you've heard this before, but let's actually sit with it, it loses somewhere between 9 and 11% of its value. Not over a year, not over 6 months, the second you leave the dealership. That $45,000 car you just bought is worth maybe $40,000 before you've made your first payment. By the end of year one, it's lost somewhere between 15 and 25% of its original value. By year 3, you're looking at roughly 40 to 50% gone. By year 5, depending on the brand and model, you might be sitting on something worth 40 cents on the dollar compared to what you paid. That process has a name. It's called depreciation. And it is the silent killer of personal wealth that almost nobody talks about seriously. Now here's why this matters so much. If you finance a car, which about 80% of new car buyers do, you are paying interest on an asset that is shrinking in value while you pay. Think about that. With a mortgage, you're paying interest on something that at least has a historical tendency to go up. With a car loan, you are paying a bank for the privilege of watching your asset evaporate. And if you roll negative equity from a previous car into a new loan, which dealers will absolutely let you do and will absolutely encourage, you can end up in a situation where you owe $30,000 on a car that's worth $18,000. That's called being underwater. And it is incredibly common and incredibly hard to escape. Let's talk numbers, because the numbers are where this really hits. The average new car price in the United States right now is hovering around $48,000. Let that sink in. The average. Not a luxury car, not a truck loaded with every option. The average transaction price across all vehicles sold. And the average car loan? Around $700 a month for new vehicles, with loan terms stretching out to 72 and even 84 months. That's 6 and 7 year loans. Because that's the only way the monthly payment looks manageable on a $48,000 vehicle when interest rates are where they are. So you're paying $700 a month for 6 years. That's $50,400 in payments. On a car that by the time you pay it off might be worth $20,000 if you're lucky. And that's before we talk about what else that $700 a month could have done. If you invested $700 a month for 6 years in something returning the historical stock market average, you'd have somewhere around $65,000 to $70,000. Instead, you have a 6-year-old car. That's the real cost of a car payment. Not just what you pay, but what you give up the chance to build. Economists call this opportunity cost, and it is absolutely brutal when you apply it to car payments. Now let's layer on what the car costs you beyond the payment itself, because this is where people really underestimate things. Insurance on a new $48,000 vehicle, full coverage, which your lender will require, is going to run you anywhere from $150 to $300 a month, depending on your age, your record, your location, and the vehicle itself. Let's call it $200 a month conservatively. That's $2,400 a year just to protect the thing. Then there's registration and taxes, which vary wildly by state, but can run $500 to over $1,000 a year on a newer vehicle. Fuel. The average American drives about 15,000 miles a year. At current gas prices and average fuel economy, that's somewhere in the range of $2,000 to $3,000 a year in gas for a typical non-EV. Maintenance and repairs. New cars are generally reliable, but tires, oil changes, brake jobs, filters, budget at least $500 to $1,000 a year, even on something brand new. And that number climbs significantly as the car ages. When you add all of this up, payment, insurance, fuel, maintenance, registration, the average American is spending somewhere between $10,000 and $14,000 per year on their vehicle. Per year. That is a staggering amount of money to spend on something that goes down in value every single day you own it. So why do we do it? Why does almost everyone just accept this as the cost of living? A few reasons. 1. Cars are tied to identity in a way that almost nothing else is. What you drive is a signal. It says something about who you are, or who you want people to think you are. Manufacturers spend billions of dollars every year making sure you feel that way. 2. The monthly payment model is genius for hiding the real cost. Nobody walks into a dealership and says, "I'd like to spend $58,000 on this car over the next 6 years." They say, "What's the monthly payment?" And when the salesperson says $699 a month, that feels like a manageable number. The total cost gets buried. 3. Financing is normalized to the point where paying cash for a car feels almost weird. Dealers actually make a significant portion of their profit not from the car itself, but from the financing. They get a cut of the loan. So they are deeply incentivized to get you into the longest loan at the highest rate they can justify. And 4. Everybody does it. Your neighbors have car payments. Your co-workers have car payments. Your family has car payments. So it just feels like the thing you do. Normalcy is the most powerful financial force there is, for better or for worse. Here's where it gets interesting though, because not all car decisions are equally bad. And there is a spectrum here from genuinely smart to genuinely catastrophic. On the catastrophic end, financing a brand new luxury or near luxury vehicle you can't actually afford. Taking a 72 or 84-month loan to make the payment look smaller. rolling negative equity from your last car into the new loan, and leasing when you're going to go over the mileage limit. Let's talk about leasing for a second, because a lot of people think leasing is a smart move, and for most people, it absolutely isn't. When you lease a car, you are essentially renting it. You make payments, you have the car for 2 or 3 years, and then you give it back and have nothing. No equity, no asset, nothing. And then you do it again and again, forever. Leasing can make sense in very specific circumstances, certain business situations where you can write off the payments, or if you genuinely need a new car every 2 to 3 years and the math works out on the specific deal. But for the average person, leasing is the most expensive way to operate a vehicle long term. You are always paying, you are always in a payment, and you never own anything. So what is the smart move? Let's actually build the framework. The single most powerful thing you can do for your financial life as it relates to cars is to buy a reliable used vehicle, preferably 2 to 4 years old, with cash or the smallest loan possible, and drive it for as long as it runs. Here's why this works so well. That 2 to 4 year old vehicle has already absorbed the brutal first years of depreciation. The original buyer took the hit. You get a car that still has plenty of life in it, but costs dramatically less than it did new. A car that was $45,000 new might be $28,000 to $32,000 at 3 years old, with reasonable miles on it. Same car, just let someone else pay for the privilege of being the first owner. And then you drive it, you maintain it, you keep it. Because here's the thing about cars that the industry doesn't want you to think about. Modern vehicles are extraordinarily reliable if you take care of them. Getting 200,000 miles out of a well-maintained car is not unusual anymore. The sweet spot for wealth building is to own a paid-off car. A car you own free and clear. Because the month your car is paid off, if you just take what you were paying and redirect it, invest it, save it, build with it, the financial impact is enormous over time. Let's talk about specific numbers on the used versus new comparison, because this is where it gets concrete. Say you're choosing between buying a new Toyota RAV4 at $38,000 and a 3-year-old RAV4 with 35,000 miles at $26,000. The new one, financed over 60 months at 7% interest, costs you about $752 a month. Total paid, around $45,000. The used one, financed over 48 months at the same rate, costs you about $622 a month. Total paid, about $29,800. That's over $15,000 in savings on the total purchase. And that's before accounting for the lower insurance cost on the used vehicle, the lower registration fees in most states, and the fact that the used car has already done most of its depreciating, so your equity position is immediately better. If you take that $130 monthly difference and invest it over 4 years at historical market returns, that's another $7,000 to $8,000 on top of the savings. The used car wins, and it isn't close. Now let's address the electric vehicle question, because you can't talk about cars in this era without it. Are EVs a good financial decision? The honest answer is, it depends, and the math is changing fast. On the positive side, EVs have dramatically lower fuel costs. Charging at home is significantly cheaper per mile than gasoline in most parts of the country. They also have fewer moving parts, which means lower maintenance costs over time. No oil changes, no transmission fluid, fewer brake jobs because of regenerative braking. The tax credit situation, currently up to $7,500 for qualifying new EVs under federal law with income limits, can meaningfully change the purchase math if you qualify. On the negative side, the upfront purchase price is still higher than comparable gas vehicles in most segments. Depreciation on EVs has been brutal in the last couple of years, particularly on Teslas, as prices got cut and competition increased. Charging infrastructure still creates range anxiety for some buyers and real inconvenience if you live in an apartment or somewhere without easy home charging. And battery replacement, while rare, is extremely expensive if it happens outside of warranty. The EV space is moving so fast that the calculus is genuinely different today than it was 2 years ago, and will be different again 2 years from now. If you're considering one, run the specific numbers for your driving habits, your electricity rate, and the specific vehicle. Don't buy on vibes in either direction. Let's bring it to the framework, the questions you need to answer before your next car decision. 1. Do I actually need a new car right now, or am I just bored or embarrassed by what I'm driving? This sounds blunt, but it is the most important question. The best car for your finances is the one you already own and have paid off. If your current car runs, fixing it is almost always cheaper than replacing it. 2. If I do need to replace it, what is the most reliable vehicle in my budget that I can buy with the shortest loan possible, or ideally cash? Reliability data is publicly available from Consumer Reports, JD Power, and owner communities online. Use it. 3. What is the total cost of ownership, not just the payment? Run the numbers on insurance, fuel, maintenance, and registration before you commit. A cheaper purchase price can get wiped out by higher insurance or worse fuel economy. 4. How long am I planning to own this? If the answer is less than 3 years, you are almost certainly going to lose money on the transaction costs and depreciation. Plan to own it longer or reconsider the purchase entirely. 5. Am I buying this car, or am I buying the feeling of driving this car? There is no wrong answer to that question, as long as you are honest with yourself about it and you can genuinely afford it. The problem is when people buy the feeling and convince themselves it's practical. Here is the bottom line on cars and wealth. Cars are a cost. They are not an investment. They do not go up in value. They do not generate income. They do not compound. With very rare exceptions, certain collectibles, certain classic vehicles, the moment you drive it, the clock is ticking on its value. The goal with a car is to minimize what it costs you so that you have more resources available for things that actually do build wealth. That doesn't mean drive a beater. That doesn't mean never buy something you enjoy. It means making the decision with clear eyes about what it actually costs and what you're actually getting. Because the person driving the paid-off 5-year-old Camry who's maxing out their retirement account every year is, financially speaking, in a completely different position than the person with the $850 a month payment on something they bought to impress people who aren't paying their bills. One of those people is quietly building something. The other one is performing prosperity while undermining it. Be the first person. Next time on Better Investments, we're getting into one of the most misunderstood and most exciting topics in personal finance: the stock market. Is it just legalized gambling? Is it a wealth machine that works while you sleep? Is it both? We're going to break it all the way down. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and if this video made you think twice about your next car decision, share it with someone.